Have you ever wondered, before spring mattresses, hotels, or solitary sleep under electric light show, did people truly rest? Some slept high in trees, afraid of predators. Others curled on warm stone beds, wrapped in snowstorms. And some lay shoulder to shoulder with strangers, 8 at a time, just to make it through the night. The bed was never just a place to sleep. It was a sanctuary, a throne, the place where prayers began and where memory came to rest. Not all journeys begin with footsteps. Some begin in silence, in the hush of blankets, in the space between breaths. So, as you lie back tonight, let this be your invitation not into history as you knew it, but into a softer, more secret world. One woven not from facts, but from feelings, from whispers, from the deep comfort that only a bed can offer. My name is James. I'll be your storyteller tonight. And this is the story of how we came to rest. The dreaming history of beds. Before we dive into ancient ruins or royal chambers, I want to invite you to do something very simple. Feel the weight of your body resting into the mattress beneath you. Notice the way your shoulders soften, how your head sinks gently into your pillow. Let your fingers run slowly along the folds of your sheet, your blanket, your comforter, whatever wraps you tonight. Notice their texture, their temperature, their quiet promise that you are safe. You are here. If a breeze touches your cheek, let it remind you. The world outside is still turning, but in here, you are allowed to be still. Now, gently close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your breath find a natural rhythm. Inhale softly, exhale even softer, and listen. Long before alarm clocks and memory foam, long before duvets and headboards, humanity had already begun the slow art of learning how to rest. Imagine the world thousands and thousands of years ago. No cities, no bedrooms, just stars, trees, wind, and silence. Before humans were even fully human, our ancestors learned to sleep where it was safest, above the ground. Yes, among the trees. Can you picture it? Dark branches cradling early beings, their bodies curled against the cool night. The leaves shifting in the wind, owls calling from afar. They didn't have pillows. They didn't need alarms. They had instinct. They slept to survive. Some scientists believe that strange little jolt you sometimes feel as you're falling asleep, that sudden drop that makes your heart jump, is a leftover echo from those days. A reflex that kept our ancestors from tumbling from the branches mid-dream. We call it the hypnic jerk. But maybe it's something deeper. Maybe it's our soul remembering how we once held uneven in sleep. When the trees no longer held us, caves did. Cool, dark, silent hollows in the earth. In what is now Texas, archaeologists found ancient indentations in cave floor, small, human-shaped dips in the ground like fingerprints of sleep. They weren't grand, they weren't soft, but they were warm. People likely curled close together, pressed against one another for heat. Not out of romance, but out of need. It's strange, isn't it? We spend our modern nights in queen-size beds, chasing space and solitude. But our beginnings were about closeness, togetherness, a shared breath beneath the stars. Far from Texas, in the southern folds of Africa, something miraculous was uncovered. A mattress, the world's oldest. It lay hidden in Sabutu Cave, preserved by time and carelessness of flame. Woven from sedge, layered with leaves from the Cape Quince tree leaves chosen, perhaps, not just for comfort, but for their ability to repel insects. It wasn't just sleep they were crafting. It was sanctuary. Even then, we weren't just lying down. We were designing places to drift away and return again. But to continue our journey, we must sail north across oceans of time and waves of wind, to an island battered by sea and storm, to a land called mainland, the largest of the Orkney Islands in Scotland. It was 1,850. A terrible storm struck the coast, lashing the land with rain and fury. When the winds died down and the earth settled, something ancient emerged. A village, 5,000 years old, hidden under grass and soil, like a memory buried beneath consciousness. It was called Scarabray. There, among stone tools and bone beads, were stone beds. Yes, stone, box-shaped, solid, silent. Each little house had one. 2 compartments in each, but done slightly larger than the other. Perhaps one side for the woman, one for the man. 2 lives, side by side, separated only by a line in the rock. They slept on heather rough and fragrant, covered in fur, huddled against the howling wind. Outside, seabirds cried into the dusk. Inside, the fire cracked low and warm. Can you imagine lying in that bed? A chill in the air, the scent of moss and salt clinging to your clothes, but you're wrapped in fur, heavy and comforting. The waves whisper outside your stone home. Your fingers dig slightly into the heather beneath you. You close your eyes, and you are carried away. Even then, 5,000 years ago, sleep was sacred. Not an interruption, but a return. Not a task, but a ritual. As we continue, we'll visit palaces along the Nile, royal chambers draped in gold, hidden warming beds in the snowfields of China, and even the strange bundled courtships of rural Wales. But for now, rest here, among ferns and firelight, among roots and rituals. The world may have changed, but the soul still longs for what it has always loved. A place to lie down, a place to feel safe, a place to dream. Close your eyes. Let the stones of Scarabray hold you. Let history breathe beside you. And sleep. There are places where sleep is not just rest but ritual. There are nights when you don't simply lie down but melt into the sand, the moonlight, the sound of ever-moving water. Tonight, we leave behind the stone beds of windswept islands. Come with me southward, where the sun hangs like a golden torch over a sky too blue to name. Let's travel to ancient Egypt, a place where sleep, like life itself, was crafted into a sacred symbol. Can you hear it? The rustle of papyrus by the shore, the chorus of frogs croaking between man-made canals, the Nile's silver surface reflecting moonlight like a mirror, and in a small stone villa, someone is drifting into sleep. They lie upon a high bed, carved and regal, its legs shaped like lion's paws, resting on sand still warm from the day. But their skin is wrapped in linen, dampened ever so slightly cool, delicate and scented like desert air after a rare rain. Can you picture it? A breeze moves gently through an open window. You catch the scent of resin, river water, and sun-baked stone. The sleeper closes their eyes, and their dream begins to lend as the pyramids standing watch in the distance. Beds in ancient Egypt were not like ours. They were raised off the ground to avoid scorpions, ants, and the unnamed things that wandered the floors of the night. They didn't use soft pillows. Instead, wooden or glass headrests supported the neck, keeping the head elevated and aligned. Strange, perhaps, but for them, sleep wasn't about indulgence. It was about harmony, a way to keep body and spirit in order, even in stillness. And if you had wealth, your sleep was wrapped in linen, not just any linen, but linen that had been scented with oils, sandalwood, frankincense, myrrh. They weren't just cooling the body, they were preparing the soul. Imagine yourself there lying in an Egyptian bedroom late into the night. No electricity, no city lights, just stars above you, wide and infinite. Your skin kissed by breeze, each breath slower than the last, each heartbeat quieter. You are not just sleeping, you are dissolving into nature. And in this land of monuments and mysteries, beds were not only for the living. The dead, too, were laid to rest in beds, funerary couches carved for the afterlife, surrounded by food, treasures, scrolls, and prayers. The Egyptians believed that sleep was a form of departuria, quiet beginning to the soul's next journey. So, whether made of wood or gold, beds were not furniture. They were vessels. They were boats carrying the spirit across the great unknown. We often think of beds as where we forget the world. But here, thousands of years ago, they were places to remember origins, spirit, faith. Not far from where pharaohs slumbered beneath tombs and stars, in the bright stone villas of nobles and scribes, sleep was a reward. After days spent trading goods, building temples, or studying the stars, the bed was a return to silence. When oil lamps dimmed and the music of the courtyards faded, you were left with breath and sky, and something inside you softened. As you lay there, you could feel it. Time loosening its grip, the world widening, and your body shrinking gently into peace. In our modern lives, we forget that feeling. We sleep because we're tired, because the clock says so, because we have to. But the ancients, they slept like it was sacred. And tonight, if you listen closely enough, you may hear echoes of that old knowing in the rustle of your sheet, the distant hush of water, the faint scent of something ancient. Sleep now. Let the dream find you just as it found countless souls along the Nile. Let the river's breath cool your skin. Let the stone walls hold your silence. And as your body grows heavy, remember this. You are not simply resting. You are returning. Not every bed was built for slumber. Some were crafted for spectacle, for books and politics, for whispers and wine. Tonight, we drift into the heart of the Roman Empire, into its marble villas and candlelit atriums, where the bed was not just a resting place, but a throne. Close your eyes now. Take one soft inhale, and exhale even softer. Let the sounds of distant fountains and sandals on stone echo in your mind. You're no longer in your room. You're in Rome. The city glows with firelight. The air carries the smell of olives, dust, and distant myrrh. And somewhere inside a villa lined with red plaster and gold detail, a woman lies back on her Lectusa Roman bed raised above the floor, its legs curved like scrolls of a philosopher's parchment. But she is not preparing for sleep. Not yet. This is where she reads, where she writes, where she entertains a guest or two with honeyed dates and wine from the hills. This is not the bed of a servant or soldier. This is the bed of a Roman citizen, one who knows how to live well. The ancient Romans believed that elevation mattered. To sleep closer to the ground was to be closer to dirt, to labor, to lesser things. Their beds stood tall, sometimes needing a small footstool just to climb in. Can you imagine that? Rising into bed instead of falling into it. A nightly ascension, soft, deliberate. Their mattresses were stuffed with feathers, straw, or even leaves, depending on class and coin. And their bedding was often woven from wool or hemp, dyed rich ochres or cool grays. Even the poorest had something to lie on, even if it was simple, even if it was worn. But for the wealthy, beds weren't confined to bedrooms. There were day beds for reading, dining beds for reclining at feasts where guests would sprawl on their sides, supported by cushions, and eat with one hand. The bed was the center of domestic life. Imagine an evening banquet in an aristocrat's home. Torches flicker. Laughter bubbles from every corner. You lie on your left side, propped on a velvet bolster, and lift figs from a silver plate. This isn't just dining. It's a performance. A declaration. I have time. I have leisure. I have luxury. Even sleep in Rome was political. To be seen resting in public or indulging in midday naps was not shameful. It was dignified. The philosopher Seneca himself praised the nap. The poet Ovid wrote verses from bed, and it was said that Julius Caesar often took brief dozes between meetings. But among all the beds of Rome, one is remembered not for silk or gold, but for its roots, the bed of Odysseus. Though myth, not history, its tale was sung by Roman tongues and etched on countless walls. Odysseus, the storm-tossed hero, returned home after years at sea. To prove his identity to Penelope, he spoke of their bed, carved from a living olive tree. A bed built around the heart of a tree so immovable, the house itself was shaped around it. He knew it could not be moved, and she knew he was truly home. This bed living, unshakable became a symbol of constancy, of love unchanging, of something deeper than silk or marble. Can you feel it? That quiet power? To sleep in a place carved from a living root, to lie back knowing you are held not by furniture, but by the earth. That's what many Roman homes tried to replicate. In a world filled with conquest and ambition, they sought something permanent, anchored, sacred. And as you lie there tonight, perhaps on a modern mattress wrapped in synthetic blends, you can still feel some piece of that desire to be held, to be lifted, to be known. There's a silence beneath luxury, a longing within grandeur. And even in the empire's greatest villas, sleep remained sleep, a returning to the self, to the breath, to the quiet the world cannot take. So tonight, if you feel the corners of your bed cradle you, if you notice how your pillow fits just so beneath your neck, let it remind you, you are part of something ancient. You are not the first to long for this comfort, and you will not be the last. Drift gently now. Let your body become the guest of your own home. Let your breath rise and fall like candlelight in a Roman corridor. And let your dreams come no as visitors, but as honored companions. Sleep, after all, was never meant to be rushed. It was meant to be received, like a gift, like a myth, like a bed that cannot be moved. Not all beds are soft. Some are solid, heavy, built not for movement, but for endurance. Tonight, we turn away from gold and marble and walk quietly into the snowy winds of northern China. Here, winter is not a season. It's a force, one that creeps into homes, silences, fields, and tests even the strongest hearth. But ancient builders had an answer, a secret passed down through generations. A bed made of stone called the Kang. Close your eyes now. Picture the cold. Outside, snow gathers along narrow paths. The wind howls across wide plains, and distant lanterns flicker in the mist. Inside, though, the world feels different. You step into a humble brick house. Low ceiling, clay walls, and in the center, not off to the side, is a raised platform, long and wide, covered in quilts. This is the Kang. It is more than just a place to sleep. It is the heart of the home. Built from solid bricks or stone, the Kang stretches across the room like a low stage. But underneath, a hidden miracle. A flue system runs through its belly, connected to the main stove, usually in the kitchen. As the family cooks rice, boils soup, or brews tea, heat travels quietly beneath the Kang, warming it slowly, steadily, all day long. And by nightfall, the stone glows with warmth. You lie down beneath layers of thick bedding, and soon the heat begins to rise. Not fast, not fierce, but deeply. A warmth that starts in your back and seeps into your limbs. It's not just comforting, it's protective. In places where blizzards could last for days and firewood was precious, the Kang was survival. Imagine a family gathered here. Parents, children, grandparents, all seated cross-legged on the Kang, sipping soup, folding clothes, telling stories. There's laughter, there's steam on the windows, and outside, the snow keeps falling. At night, they don't leave. They just shift, roll out bedding, fluff pillows, and sleep right where they lived side by side, soul to soul. In larger ends, the Kang could stretch across an entire room big enough for 6, 8, even 10 travelers to rest together. Strangers warming the same stone, each in their own quiet world. Can you feel it? The heat under your back, the quilt heavy on your chest, the distant creak of branches frozen outside. You're not just resting, you're held. Unlike beds of luxury, the Kang did not boast silk or gold. It boasted endurance. It promised warmth. And in that promise, it became sacred. Sometimes a tea table would be placed on the Kang. People would eat meals, write letters, share secrets. And long after dinner was over, someone might stay just to sit in the warmth, to think, to listen to the quiet. This kind of sleep was not rushed. It arrived slowly, like steam from a teacup, like snow melting into the eaves. And when morning came, the Kang would still be warm, still cradling the dreams of those who had just risen. There's something beautiful about a bed like this, a bed that doesn't belong to a single person. A bed that's always warm because it's always part of life. A bed that asks you to share, not just space, but silence. In the West, we often think of beds as private, personal. But here, on this stone platform, sleep was a gathering. Even now, in many parts of rural China, the Kang still survives. In homes built with hand-packed earth, in villages where children curl up next to their grandparents, and where the warmth of stone is still trusted more than wires and wires of electric heat. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, soft or firm, new or worn, close your eyes and feel beneath you not coils or springs, but something ancient, something that remembers what it means to keep you safe from the cold. Let that warmth find you, not just in your skin, but in your heart. Because the king wasn't just a bed. It was love made solid, fire made stone, a mountain turned soft under your bones. So, sleep now, not with haste, but with gratitude. You are wrapped not just in blankets, but in generations of invention, in the wisdom of builders who faced the snow and said, "No one in this house will shiver tonight." And they didn't, and you won't buck. Let the stone beneath you glow. Let your breath rise with the warmth, and let yourself fall into a sleep that lasts long after the fire dies out. This is the sleep of the king. This is warmth that remembers. Some beds don't whisper. They announce, with carved posts, cascading curtains, and layers upon layers of embroidered dreams. Tonight, we wander into the candlelit corridors of Renaissance Europe, where a bed was not just a place to sleep, but a declaration of who you were. Close your eyes. Imagine a hallway filled with a scent of beeswax and lavender. Tapestries line the walls, muffling the winter wind. A servant pushes open a heavy oak door, and there, glowing in the firelight, is your bed. Tall, grand, draped in crimson velvet. It rises like a small cathedral in the center of the room. This is no ordinary bed. This is a four-poster throne. From the 1400s onward, beds like these became the pride of noble homes. They stood tall on carved legs, with thick wooden frames wrapped in fabrics so rich, it shimmered like wine. The curtains served more than beauty. They kept in heat during harsh winters and shut out the eyes of servants, guests, and sometimes lovers. Inside this tent of warmth and silk, you could sleep, speak, cry, love, and pray. The bed was no longer just a resting place. It was a private world. Can you feel it? The hush as the curtains are drawn. The flicker of candlelight softening to amber. The heaviness of blankets layered one atop the other, each one stitched by hands long forgotten. This bed could hold your secrets, your dreams, and your legacy. Because here's something you may not know. Beds weren't always kept in bedrooms. In Renaissance homes, the finest bed was often displayed in the main hall, not to be slept in by the owner, but by the guest. Yes, the best bed in the house, draped in silks and silver, was a gesture of honor, a way to say, "You matter enough to sleep here." While the family themselves might rest on simpler frames, tucked away in smaller quarters, it was a hospitality of extravagance, a quiet humility wrapped in velvet. But even among royalty, beds were more than furniture. There were stages. In France, King Louis XIV was said to own over 400 beds. His favorite at Versailles was hung with gold-embroidered curtains and adorned with ostrich feathers and jeweled buttons. It was not uncommon for high-ranking nobles, ambassadors, and advisors to be invited into his bedchamber, not to lie down, but to witness. They would stand silently as the king woke, offered his hand for a kiss, or nodded off again beneath layers of brocade. To watch the monarch sleep was a privilege. To be near his bed was power. And across the channel in England, Queen Elizabeth I had beds fit for a myth. At her beloved Richmond Palace, she slept in a boat-shaped bed hung with seafoam green curtains, as if she drifted each night upon a velvet ocean, guided only by the stars. When she traveled to London's Whitehall Palace, her bed came with her, carried from estate to estate like a sacred object, its headboard studded with silver. its canopy painted by hand with birds and vines from far-off lands. And though Elizabeth never married, she rarely slept alone. One of her ladies-in-waiting would often share the bed, not as companion, but as confidant. To sleep beside the queen was not intimacy, it was favor. Can you imagine lying there? The muffled sounds of the palace fading into hush, silk sheets cool against your skin, curtains drawn, candles snuffed, and your heartbeat echoing in a space fit for empire. But the story doesn't stop with kings and queens. Even in humbler homes, a bed could be an heirloom passed down through generations. 1/3 of a family's wealth might be spent on a bed and its linens. Wooden frames strung with ropes tightened every few days. Wool-stuffed mattresses. Layered quilts stitched by hand, sometimes bearing initials or secret messages in thread. This was the bed that saw births, deaths, new lovers, and old aches. It was where families gathered when someone was ill, where children were told stories, where prayers were whispered before sleep. Sometimes, under that main bed, was another, a smaller, simpler trundle bed pulled out at night for a servant or child, tucked away when morning came, like a second story beneath the first. So much of life happened between those posts, in the folds of linen, in the rustle of embroidered canopies, in the breath shared under the same quilt. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, feel the weight of your blanket, the rhythm of your breath, the privacy of your little world. And remember, once upon a time, beds were stages, altars, thrones, and you too deserve that quiet majesty. Sleep now. Let velvet fall across your thoughts. Let dreams climb the carved wood of your imagination. And rest like royalty. Not every bed stays in one place. Some travel, some wait in roadside inns, listening to the secrets of strangers. Some carry the scent of firelight, horses, and long-forgotten goodbyes. Tonight, we leave the velvet chambers of queens behind and step into something simpler, more worn, more shared, the inn. Imagine it now. A wooden sign sways above the door, its paint faded by rain. The sound of hooves fades into the distance. And inside, candles flicker along timber walls. There is soup on the fire and warmth in the air, a warmth made not by gold, but by people. Travelers gather around tables. A child sleeps curled beside the hearth. And upstairs, up the narrow staircase, past creaking floors and shuttered windows, lies a bed, a massive bed, one that takes up most of the room. It is carved with ribbons and leaves, initials and hearts, not made to match the wealth of kings, but to carry the weight of stories. This is the Great Bed of Ware. Built in the 16th century in Hertfordshire, England, the Great Bed was over 3 meters wide and more than 2 meters tall. It could hold not one, not two, but up to 8 people at once. Yes, 8. 4 couples, side by side, strangers from different towns, each wrapped in their own quiet, each breathing into the same silence. The bed stood in a local inn, just a day's ride from London. Ware was a stopping point on the ancient Roman road Ermine Street, a place to rest between Cambridge and the rolling hills of the north. Can you picture it? A cold night. The wind howls outside, but inside, you and 7 others lie close. Some snoring softly, others wide-eyed, staring at carved angels on the canopy. There is a strange intimacy in sharing sleep with strangers. A humanness. You don't speak, you don't touch, but somehow you rest. Some guests left their initials carved into the wood. Others pressed wax seals into the frame as if to say, I was here. I dreamed here. I made it through the dark. And so the bed grew heavier, not with weight, but with memory. People have always shared beds, not just the poor, but nobles too. In many Renaissance homes, the entire family would sleep in the same bed, parents, children, infants, a pile of limbs and warmth and breath. And when guests arrived, they were welcomed under the same quilt. There were rules, of course, who slept where, who turned which way. But there was no shame in sharing, only closeness. Even lovers, long before vows, were sometimes given permission to sleep beside one another in a ritual called bundling. In parts of rural Wales and Scotland, two sweethearts were tucked into bed together fully clothed, sometimes even wrapped in separate sacks or divided by a wooden plank. They would spend the night talking, learning, deciding, because sleep was revealing. More than a conversation, more than a date, it was presence. If you could share a bed in silence and still choose one another at sunrise, perhaps you were meant to last. So many kinds of beds, so many kinds of sleep, and always, they held the same thing, the need to pause, to trust, to let the body be soft again. Tonight, in your own bed, you may lie alone or next to someone you love, but know this, you are connected by thread to those who shared straw beds on the floor, to those who lay beneath velvet canopies, to those who marked their name in wax beside strangers. The great bed still exists. You can see it today in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, still carved, still towering, still waiting. You can almost hear the echoes, the laughter, the hush after a long ride, the dreams whispered into pillows before dawn, and maybe, just maybe, if you close your eyes now, you'll hear it too. The sound of others breathing beside you, not in body, but in spirit, because no one truly sleeps alone. We carry the weight of those who came before. We rest in the warmth they once kindled. We lie down, and in doing so, we remember what it means to be human. So tonight, settle in, let the quilt fall across your chest like a blessing. Let the mattress cradle you like an innkeeper's kindness, and let yourself drift, not alone, but alongside all the souls who ever dared to stop, to rest, to dream. Once upon a time, the night was not a single thing. It came in two parts, like a story with an intermission. There was first sleep, then a pause, and then second sleep. Tonight, we step back into that forgotten rhythm, into the soft, flickering hours when the world was quietest and most awake. Let your body grow still now. Sink deeper into your bed and imagine it's the year 1600. There are no glowing clocks, no street lamps or glowing screens, only the light of stars. And, if you're lucky, the flame of a rushlight, a slender stalk dipped in tallow, burning slow. You've had your supper, the fire is low. You lie down with the other's family, servants, maybe even guests. The bed creaks, the straw shifts, and slowly, sleep comes. Not for 8 hours, not for 6, but for 4. This is first sleep, a deep, uninterrupted dive into dream. Then, something happens. You stir, your eyes open, not startled, not anxious, just aware, and you rise, not to turn on the lamp, not to scroll or check a screen, but to step into a world that existed only then The watch, a span of 2 or 3 hours, sometime between midnight and 2 a.m., where people woke from their first sleep, lit a candle, and moved through the dark with purpose. Some stirred the hearth. Some checked on animals in the barn. Others read scripture or poetry, wrote letters, Saturday by the fire, and whispered. There was no rush, no urgency, just time. The philosopher Thomas Tryon called this middle night a time of deep, quiet, and spiritual visitation. People believed it was easier to hear God then, to receive dreams, to reflect, to think, and for many, to pray. Can you feel it? The silence of a room where everyone else still sleeps. The soft shuffle of your feet across wooden planks. The smell of ash and cold air. The flickering shadow of a candle against a stone wall. You pour a small cup of warm milk or kneel beside your bed and thank the day for what it gave. This time between sleeps was gentle, not meant for labor, but for living slowly. And then, without ceremony, you'd return to bed, blankets still warm, pillow still shaped to your head, and you would slip into second sleep. This second rest was different, softer, filled with richer dreams, more vivid colors, deeper thoughts. People often said their best ideas came not in the day, but in the hours after the watch. What if that pause, that space between, wasn't an interruption, but a gift? Today, we compress our nights into a single block. We chase sleep as if it were a race. We fear waking up too soon, as if our bodies had failed. But centuries ago, waking in the night was expected, respected. It was part of the dance. And perhaps your body still remembers. Maybe that's why you wake at 2:13 a.m. for no reason at all. Why your mind stirs when the world is silent. Why your thoughts grow clearest in the dark. Maybe it's not insomnia. Maybe it's memory, old rhythms, echoing through blood and bone. So what do? In the watch, you don't force sleep. You don't fight stillness. You sit up, light a candle real or imagined, and breathe. You make tea. You whisper a prayer. You listen for what the night wants to tell you. And then, like those who came before, you return to your sheets and you fall not back into sleep, but forward into dreams that have been waiting for you. Because the second sleep isn't a repeat. It's a descent. Deeper, wider, wiser. Tonight, if you wake, don't be afraid. You are not broken. You are remembering. The body carries memory longer than the mind. And sometimes it brings us back to firelight, to whispers, to the sacred middle of the night. So lie back now. Feel your pillow hold you. Let the dark become your companion, not your fear. And rest knowing this, you do not have to sleep all at once. You are allowed to pause, to breathe, to sit in stillness between worlds. First sleep, then wonder, then second sleep. Let your dreams come gently. Let your breath rise like mist. And let your soul walk barefoot through that silent hour where only the deepest truths are spoken. This is the watch. This is the space between, and in it, you are not alone. Not all revolutions come with noise. Some arrive in silence, in the click of a light switch, in the quiet folding of a bed into the wall. Tonight, we drift into the final chapter of our journey, into the last 100 years, where sleep has changed more than we ever noticed. But even here, amid electricity and apartment walls, the bed remains familiar, faithful, waiting. Let's return for a moment to the Victorian age. It was a time of rules of manners and modesty. And sleep, too, was reshaped. Where once families and guests shared beds freely, now privacy was prized. Cleanliness was worshipped, and the bedroom became a space set apart. No more eating in bed, no more gossiping or entertaining between sheets. The Victorians gave the bed a new job: to be purely, precisely, a place for sleep. Can you feel it? Iron bed frames replaced wooden ones, not for fashion, but because iron was easier to clean. Gone were the draped velvet canopies, the dust-heavy tapestries. Now, light linens and open spaces ruled the night. Everything was crisp, white, controlled. Even husbands and wives sometimes slept in separate rooms, each with their own carefully curated rest. But not all was strict. Some dreamers resisted. One of them was Winston Churchill. Born in the Victorian era, he was never quite tamed by its routines. Though he rose early, he spent the first 4 hours of his day in bed. He read the papers there, dictated letters to his secretary, drank tea, and made decisions that would ripple through history, all from beneath the covers. He even took daily naps around 5 p.m., calling them his secret weapon. To Churchill, the bed was not a prison of etiquette. It was a command center of the mind. And perhaps he was onto something. Because as the world rushed into the 20th century, as factories roared and cities swelled, sleep began to shift again. People no longer followed the sun. They followed the clock. Instead of drifting through first and second sleep, they learned to compress everything into one solid block, to sleep efficiently, tightly, in the narrow space between exhaustion and the alarm. And in cities like New York, where space became scarce and dreams were stacked in buildings, the bed had to transform again. Enter Sarah Good. In the late 1800s, Sarahan, African-American entrepreneur, designed a piece of furniture unlike any other. It was a desk by day and a bed by night. When she received her patent, she became one of the first Black women in U.S. history to do so. Her design would later inspire the Murphy bed, that clever contraption that folds up into the wall, tucked neatly behind a cabinet or shelf. Imagine it, a tiny apartment, books on every surface, city lights blinking through a narrow window, and with one gentle pull, the bed unfolds like a secret garden, a quiet space, a personal sky. Beds were no longer just about beauty or tradition. They became solutions to space, to time, to life lived on the move. From dormitories to sleeper cars, from bunk beds to futons, we kept asking the same question: how can I rest where there's no room to rest? And the bed kept answering, with softness, with ingenuity, with grace. Even now, we live in a time of invention. Smart mattresses adjust to your position. Sleep apps track your breathing. Some beds even come with built-in lighting, speakers, and reminders to breathe deeply. But beneath the sensors and screens, the need is still ancient. To feel safe, to let go, to fall not down, but inward. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, whether it folds, floats, vibrates, or simply waits, know that you are part of something continuous. You carry the memory of tree branches, of stone platforms warmed from below, of velvet curtains and embroidered pillows, of 8 strangers snoring together in a roadside inn. And when you pull the blanket up to your chin, you are repeating a gesture thousands of years old. A gesture older than language, older than light. Sleep is not just what we do, it's what we become. We become still. We become soft. We become home. So tonight, let the world outside fade. Let the city go on without you. Let your mind loosen its grip, because your bed remembers. It holds not just your weight, but your story. And when you drift into sleep, you are not ending the day. You are continuing a journey that began with branches and firs and starlight. A journey made of naps and night watches, of kings and carpenters, of dreamers and designers. A journey called rest. So close your eyes. Let the past curl up beside you and sleep. As people have always slept, wrapped in time, and now as your breath softens and your body sinks a little deeper, remember this. Every bed you've ever known, every blanket, every pillow carries the echoes of those who came before you. From tree branches to royal chambers, from stone platforms to folding beds in tiny room sleep has always been sacred. Tonight, you are not just falling asleep. You are continuing an ancient story. So close your eyes and let the bed beneath you whisper, you are safe, you are home, you are part of a dream that never truly ends.